Now that we have an understanding of what happened in the decades leading up to 1939, let's now take a look at the events of 1939 to early 1941. On the 1st of September 1939, Poland was invaded by Germany. This was called Operation Case White. Now, 3 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany, and within 24 hours, the British Expeditionary Force deployed to France. Now, it's important to remember that the Polish weren't just fighting the Germans, as on the 17th of September, the Soviet Union invaded Poland from the east. Now, there was some resistance put up by the Poles, but they did surrender on the 6th of October. And by the 7th of October, the British Expeditionary Force was completely deployed to France. However, they couldn't physically affect or have any influence on Germany, just a sheer geography. Now, with the BEF deployed, there wasn't that much left to do, as they were on the defensive, and this was part of the French and British plan to stop German expansion to the west. They would be defensive, they wouldn't provoke the Nazis. Now, this period between October and April was known as the Phony War, or the Sitzkrieg, where there wasn't that much happening. But on the 9th of April 1940, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway. Now, the Danish king immediately surrendered, realizing his hopeless situation, but the Norwegians continued to fight on. Just under a month later, on the 10th of May, France, Holland, Belgium, and Luxembourg were all invaded, and this was known as Operation Case Yellow. Luxembourg surrendered immediately. The French, Dutch, and Belgians carried on fighting. Now, on the 15th of May, after Rotterdam was razed to the ground, Holland surrendered, and this was followed by the Belgian surrender on the 28th. And on the 3rd of June, Operation Dynamo, which was the evacuation from Dunkirk, was completed. But important to remember that despite being invaded in April, Norway only surrendered on the 10th of June, as there was some pitched battles, including naval engagements off the Norwegian coast. Then, on the 22nd of June, France surrendered. Now, this French surrender, culminates in a month-and-a-half period where one of the world's largest armies was defeated. And this really was a shock to the whole world. Most of all, the British, who, despite evacuating 300,000 plus of their own troops, lost a lot of equipment. So much so that equipment such as artillery pieces were taken out of the Imperial War Museum and pressed back into service. Now, 2 days before France surrendered, the army said that they were happy and they were prepared to invade the UK. Now, formal direction was given on the 16th of July 1940, and invasion was set to happen in August. However, due to a number of reasons, least of all being lack of cooperation between the Army, Air Force, and the Navy, the operation was cancelled. Now, this video is really much focused on the land battles and the land operations which took place between 1939 and 1941. But it's important to recognise the contributions of the Royal Air Force and Royal Navy and what was going on at that time. For instance, you had the Battle of Britain, which took place over the summer of 1940, and you also had the Battle of the Atlantic, which started on the very first day of the Second World War, the 3rd of September, with the sinking of the Athenia, until the very last day of the Second World War. So this aside, it doesn't get away from the fact that British forces had been forcibly ejected off mainland Europe in the summer of 1940, and it would be a whole 4 years until they to return on what was to become known as D-Day on the 6th of June 1944. Between the end of Op Dynamo and D-Day itself, lessons were to be learned both the easy way and through hard, bitter-fought experience over the next 4 years. And that's what we'll focus on in the next video.